Alrighty, there. Okay. Okay. So welcome. Here we are with making our yoga props. So we have one blanket rolled up into the other one. So this creates kind of like a yoga bolster. If you have a yoga bolster, that's ideal as well. And then we'll just take these other two blankets or towels, whatever you have works fine. We're just going to fold these and put them to the side for a minute. Okay, then I have two yoga blocks. Cushions work well too, and one of them I'm sitting on. And the thing is, Gina, you probably know this, but when you're sitting down, your knees kind of pop up like this, and it can cause a lot of discomfort, especially if you have like tight hips. So sitting up on something allows the hips to really release, and it's a much more comfortable seated position. So I recommend that if it feels good. All right, and then I did put, to turn on some tunes if you have it, I'm gonna create a Spotify playlist for next week's class that you guys can use. I could play music through here, but my only downside with that is I can't be 100% certain that the music quality versus, hearing my voice and everything sounds really good. So yeah, so I'll just create a playlist for you guys. And then I also mentioned to get some essential oils. There's a great one called Chill Pill. Gina, I think you have that one actually. Also any lavender, I love lavender. Anything that's really kind of grounding and calming would be good. So if you want to, sometimes I mix that with like another oil, just something like a carrier oil, put that on my wrist, or sometimes just, maybe put a little on a paper towel, maybe put a tiny bit on your body if that feels okay for you, if you don't have any sensitivities, just to kind of start off our practice. So, all right, this week I've been thinking a lot about presence, and I think presence is something that gets kicked around. I feel like I hear that term all the time, especially in motherhood, like wanting to be more present, not wanting to miss a moment, really trying to be there with your children so we're not on the phone and we're not checking social media, which a lot of us do anyways, is totally fine. But I know there's a little bit of guilt around anything that's taking us away from really being in the moment with our children. And I've been feeling that with this isolation. I feel like a lot of pressure to not just put my children in front of the TV so that I can have a little time to myself. I'm like almost terrified of doing that for some reason. I do it still, but I feel a lot of guilt with it. And I think it comes back to this message around presence, and we feel so like such a huge need to be present all the time in motherhood. But presence is a tough thing. Presence is really hard. I know, I was writing about it the other day, and I realized that my mind, maybe yours is as well, is inclined not to live in this moment. Instead, my mind gravitates towards all of the moments that I've already lived in the past and all of the moments that I have yet to live in the future. I feel like I'm constantly worrying about what's coming or thinking about what's already happened. And presence is a practice. Like, it's something that you need to, it doesn't always come easily. It's not always easy just to release all of the before and after moments of life and to dial into this moment. So something about restorative yoga that has really resonated with me is I feel like the more I practice it, the easier presence comes to me. And it's still a challenge sometimes, but I feel like I'm able to release that need to worry about the past and worry about the future and really dial into what's going on now. So in today's practice, we're going to touch on that a little bit. Just continuing to come back to the idea, which I talk about anyways in my class, but coming back to this idea of asking everything for this hour, asking everything to wait outside for you. Put everything just outside that door if it wants, but really to dial into what's happening here on the mat and what's happening here with the breath and inside this body, because we don't do that very much. So this is your chance to really dial into that. All right. Coming to a nice seated position, find a nice straight spine and close your eyes if it feels good. Before we even talk about the breath, let's just pay attention to what's going on within our body. Where are we at when we come to the mat? How is the energy? How is our mind? How is our breath? Where are our emotions at? It's Sunday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. How has the day been? How has the weekend been and the week behind you? All of that kind of adds to what we bring when we come to the mat. So it's good to check in with yourself and find out where you're at. And then begin to draw out the breath, finding a longer inhale and a nice smooth exhale. Drawing that breath in. And pause for just a moment at the top of the inhale. And then release the breath out. Pausing for a moment at the bottom of the exhale. And continue with this inhale and exhale at your own pace. Restorative yoga has a lot of great benefits for both the nervous system and the digestive system. It's a chance to rest, digest, and to heal. So feel yourself sinking into that parasympathetic nervous system, releasing the fight or flight that we feel, releasing the jumpiness, the high energy, the go, go, go feeling. And as we draw out these inhales and exhales, feel the earth beneath you. Feeling nice and supported. Drawing the energy up our spine. On our next inhale, we're going to roll our shoulders up into our ears and squeeze them in. And then open mouth exhale, rolling them down and back. Good. 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Roll those shoulders up. And exhale. Just going to help one person get in the class. Hold on. All right, keep breathing. Hopefully that works. Okay. All right. Now we're going to do our 4-corner breathing. So we'll start down in the bottom corner. On the inhale, we're going to draw energy up the side of our square. We're going to pause at the top for just 3 breaths. And on the exhale, we're going to release the energy back down the other side of our square. And then pause at the bottom. Okay, so we'll inhale, draw the energy up. 2, 3, 4, pause. 2, 3, 4, exhale. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Last one. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And release completely. And keeping your eyes closed, fall back into your normal inhale and exhale. And let's just check in with where we're at. Notice any changes you may be feeling. Noticing any shifts in your energy, in your body. Okay, and then we're just going to take a moment here to do a quick body scan. So checking in with really the physical body and what's going on. Just notice where there is any energy that's stuck, maybe any muscles that feel extra tight. Begin with the top. So starting at the head, notice the muscles through the eyes, the jaw. Maybe find a little release through that jaw. And then bring your shoulders down, releasing them away from the ears, and just notice how they're feeling. The muscles through the shoulders, the back, and down into the arms. And then down through the chest, into the abdomen, and the hips. Not needing to do anything if you feel tension. If you're able to release it, that's great. But just noticing at this point. And down through the legs and the feet. And when you're ready, just release your chin down to your chest. And open up your eyes. We'll remove our block or our cushion, whatever we're sitting on, from underneath us. Uncross and recross our legs. I'm just going to move through some very brief seated warm-ups before we move into our restorative postures. So we've done seated cat-cow before, and we're going to move through that again, but this time I really want us to bring the arms in. So on the inhale, draw the arms back, bringing the shoulder blades together. And on the exhale, bring the arms forward, rounding through the back. Inhale, draw the arms back. And exhale, bringing them forward. Inhale. And exhale. One more. Inhale. And exhale. Now we're going to do our seated twist. A little bit different. We're going to move with the breath this time. So draw the arms out in front. We're going to inhale as we open up to one side. Exhale, bringing that arm back. And inhale the opposite side, opening up. Exhale, bringing it back around. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more time each side. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Good. Release your arms down. Moving through our side stretch. We're going to do this with the breath as well. Just adding a little bit more movement in today. One arm comes down. Inhale all the way over. And exhale back up to center. Opposite arm comes down. Inhale all the way over. And exhale back to center. Good. Twice more, moving with your own breath. Last time, both sides. Good. And then just come up to a seated position. You can lean back on the hands if you want and bring the feet down. Maybe just windshield wiper the knees from side to side. All right, so for our first restorative posture, we're gonna move into a wide-legged forward fold. So you can come this way, or if you want, face the long side of your mat, face the short side of your mat, I guess. We'll bring our bolster around. All right, so now the purpose of this, well, it is a wide-legged forward fold. We don't wanna feel a ton of, I guess, stretching through our hips. So don't really open them super wide. And if you need to bring them in, that's completely fine. The purpose of this is not, well, you might feel some just with gravity and you know, as we're folding forward, you might feel some opening through the hips, but that's not exactly what we're going for. So we are opening here, and we're gonna bring, you can choose whatever you have for support that feels right. So you might wanna start with some cushions or your yoga blocks. And place your bolster down. Depends on how flexible you are. That might be enough for you. It's definitely not enough for me. I might need them all. When you're ready, we'll just begin to forward fold, kind of like we do when we do child's pose. You can come down with one side of your face, so one cheek comes down onto the blanket. And adjust the props if you need. Now you can play with your arms, bringing them up onto the bolster or down along the side. And as you forward fold, as you start to sink into this, you don't want to feel like you're having to hold your torso up. You want to find a place of release. So that might mean bringing everything in closer and really just using this as like a pillow to collapse onto, which is completely fine. You might find you need to bring your legs a little bit closer if that stretch is too intense. And close your eyes. As we always do, remember to bring yourself back to the mat as your mind begins to wander. Noticing just for a moment, maybe the surrounding noises. All right, and Megan just joined us. Hey, Megan, I hope you can hear me okay. I'll just walk you through. We just did some warm-ups and some breath work. I think you're connecting. Just let me know when you can hear Megan. But As always, when the distractions start to come in, draw yourself back to the breath. I like to bring myself back to feeling the warmth of the inhale, filling my body up. Sometimes imagining like a globe of warm, like yellow or orange light within our body. So as we're inhaling, we're being filled with that. And as we're exhaling, that light is slowly releasing back down. And then on each inhale, that light starts to grow again. And on each exhale, that light goes back down. And then we're on one side, so let's just pick our head up and shift to the other side. So place your opposite cheek down. And find that wide-legged forward fold again. And sometimes if you tune into like the energy that you're feeling, for me, it feels like mental energy. When I start to settle into my first few restorative postures, there can be sometimes a little bit of a jumpiness. So as we're doing this wide-legged forward fold, really allow yourself to start to let go. Forward folds are very grounding. It's like a folding within ourselves. So allow yourself to feel that heaviness as you're coming forward, and to loosen all the muscles in the face and allow the head and the shoulders to draw forward and to hang heavy. We'll be here for just a few more breaths. Two more nice full breaths here. And when you're ready, we'll slowly draw ourselves up. And maybe just move your props out for a moment. Draw your hands behind you. The bottoms of your feet come to the ground. And windshield wiper those knees from side to side. Well, we're not trying to find a lot of stretch in that posture. I know sometimes it can be hard not to pull back. It feels good to open the hips and to forward fold into that. So just release the hips. All right, so for this next one, we're moving into a heart opener. And I love heart openers. I don't think I've done this one with you guys yet. We'll start with our bolster, but this might be a little too much. It might be a little too intense. So don't be afraid to kind of pull back a little bit. And maybe just use one blanket folded. That'll be a much less deep heart opener. But I'm going to start like this. Have my two blocks to either side. Bottoms of my feet coming together. And I'm bringing my blocks just to support the outsides of my knees. So this is our bound angle, our Baddha Konasana. And then you want whatever you have back here. I would not go much higher than your bolster. Like I said, maybe even just fold up a blanket. It's going to come right kind of below the shoulder blades. And we're going to slowly lower down. You might have to shift a little bit to find where that feels good. And then play with opening your arms. So release them up to either side, maybe making goalposts out of them. And close your eyes. And you will be able to know almost immediately if the bolster is too intense. If I ask you if you can stay in this for 7 minutes, and that sounds like a challenge, it's too intense. It can be as small as this. The goal is just to find a little bit of a lift through that heart. So be honest with yourself on that. If it feels too intense and you're not really getting the benefits in a restorative sense. And you want your shoulders to kind of droop over the other side of that bolster or blanket that you have. So your shoulders should not be hanging off the floor. They should find the floor. And now play with your breath. So with your arms up, or maybe they're even out to the sides a little bit. Maybe they're coming all the way up. See what feels good. It depends on how open your shoulders and back are. So play with your breath here. Start to take some nice inhales and some exhales. Notice how that breath feels. A lot of our days are spent, with our shoulders rolled in and we're a little slumped over. This is an opportunity to play with fully opening through that heart, really expanding through the chest, and finding deep inhales through that expansion. And then keeping that expansion with the arms out, you're allowing the exhale to flow out as well. And just notice the hips, making sure that you do have the outsides of those legs, the knees supported by something. So your hips don't feel like they're working to stay open. Your knees are nice and wide, but they're supported. And some days when we dive into our restorative practice, we'll find that it's easier than other days. Sometimes it's a challenge to be present on the mat and to let go of all of the internal chatter. Some days the body melts into the mat, and some days it seems to resist it. And that's all a part of the practice. Eventually, you start to find that falling into that place of restoring your mind and your body becomes easier and easier. That's part of the practice. And really tune into the breathing that you have going on. Just notice how your body feels with nice, strong, solid inhales and exhales. And just like when we did the body scan at the beginning of class, and maybe you dialed into a few parts of your body that felt a little more tense. come back to those areas. And now, as we've settled in and we've connected with the breath, on your inhale, just bring some attention to those areas. And on your exhale, try to find a little more release and relaxation there. So if it's your hips, as you draw that breath in, bring your awareness to your hips. And as you exhale, just ask yourself to let go. Sometimes we need to release that tension through the physical practice, like through a gentle yoga class or a yin yoga or something where we're a little bit more active. But sometimes we hold on to that tension because mentally we're feeling this tension, and that's where it's manifesting, and that's where we begin to hold it. And just becoming aware of it and recognizing it and asking it to let go can do the trick. A couple more breaths here. And just gently draw your knees up, bringing them together. Again, we'll windshield wiper side to side. Being careful with the support we still have under our back. And then when you get to one side, just roll over and draw yourself back up. And we're going to move into our child's pose now. So I'm going to turn this way. That's where the light is coming. And we'll set ourselves up for child's pose. I like to have my yoga blocks down, my bolster. Come up onto the knees. And then an extra blanket underneath the hips can feel really good. Bring your big toes together and your knees come nice and wide. And just pause here for a moment. And on your next exhale, we'll slowly forward fold down, coming into child's pose, and bringing one side, one cheek down onto the bolster. And you can play with how wide your knees are, maybe going a little bit wider, a little bit deeper feels good today. And maybe even the arms, have them down by the side or practice, with them a little bit reached forward. So moving from the heart opener, when we were completely open through the hips, through the heart, through the chest, and then coming up into a forward fold of sorts, into child's pose. It's kind of polarities, two opposites. An opening up, and then a drawing within. And just remember as you go through this practice, what we talked about at the beginning of class, this idea of being present. And as mothers, all the stress we put on ourselves to be present, to put down our phones, turn off our distractions, and really be there with our children all the time. And it sounds nice in theory, but it comes with a lot of mom guilt. It comes with a lot of heaviness. And it's not always where we're inclined to be. Like I said at the beginning, the mind is inclined not to live in this moment. Instead, it gravitates towards all of the moments we have already lived and all of the moments we are yet to live. So our mind seems to want to go to those polar opposites, to the past and to the future, and worrying about the future and thinking about the past. And there's this story that we always want to be grounded in the present and experiencing the present, especially when it comes to our children, but it's really hard. And I think there's a lot of strength in being able to release the guilt that comes along with that, but to put a little energy into focusing on being present and what that takes. It's not an easy place to be all the time. So restorative yoga is a practice that can help you to find that a little bit easier. So let's just move over to the opposite cheek. So if you have your left cheek on the bolster, gently move your right cheek down. And be sure to ask yourself if there's any discomfort. Sometimes the knees can feel a little uncomfortable. You could place a blanket or something underneath the knees, or can even extend them nice and long, just coming into a forward fold again of sorts. I would just ask on this one, draw your legs a little bit closer. So if you're feeling that kind of pain, definitely alter your position. And coming back to the breath when our mind begins to wander. Two more breaths here. And when you're ready, just draw your hands down along either side of your bolster. And we'll slowly bring ourselves up. And we're going to come down into a side lying stretch. So you can leave your props as they are right now. You might find that this is a little bit too high. You might have to remove some of the height there. We'll bring our left hip up against that bolster, or one of the hips, whichever one is best. And then my legs are, one leg is bent like this, and the other leg is down here bent. I know I'm in all black, so it's kind of hard to see. But placing a blanket in between your knees as you move into this posture can feel really nice. All right, so you may have to shimmy away a little bit, just sort of play with what feels right here. We'll draw our lower arm to the back side of the bolster and draw your side body down. Now you can stay right here if this feels good for you. Otherwise, take that top arm and reach it up, and then draw it overhead and forward, releasing it down here. And as you do that, you might find that you have this tendency to kind of hold your breath and to find tension through your body. But part of the practice is really just noticing that tension and letting it go. So allow yourself to sink into this now. Allow your hips to really sink down and release. Allow that arm to stay open and to release. And close your eyes if you want. And if this feels a little too high, you can remove some of the height. Now tune into your breath. So just notice with that extension through one side, how does that inhale feel any different? And if it starts to get a little shaky, is there a way to even it out and to find a release there? If it doesn't feel quite right, just play with removing some of that height and coming down. And if that arm doesn't feel right overhead, you can always draw it in front of you. We're here for a few more breaths. And when you're ready, let's draw ourselves up, kind of like when we come out of child's pose. Come up onto all four. I'm going to switch sides so my back's not to you, but you can stay just as you are. Come down onto the other side. So find the same height that you had. Draw that blanket between your knees if it feels good. And then slowly lower yourself down here with that arm behind. The upper arm might come overhead, or it might stay right in front. Notice where you're holding tension on this side. Is it in the shoulders, the hands? Is there any adjustments you need to make? Maybe notice the difference from one side to the other. And sometimes in these postures, it doesn't quite feel like yoga if we're used to a more active practice, because we're not feeling that stretch, or we're not feeling a huge expansion. But this practice is more about the release and the sinking in and the settling down. So anytime you can welcome that into your body during this practice, it allows you to go a little bit deeper. And helps your body settle into the rest, digest, and then heal processes. Helping us to release things like stress and to combat fatigue. Two more breaths. And when you're ready, open your eyes if they were closed and slowly draw yourself up. And we'll come back onto our hips, and we're going to move into a supine position. So we'll be lying on our back, but we want to have an incline setup. So I'm going to set up my 2 blocks like this. If you have pillows, you can do one a little bit lower, maybe one a little bit higher, maybe 2 pillows in back, and then bring your yoga bolster on top of that. And then we're going to do just a slight incline on the legs. Sun coming in is so bright here. I hope you can see with that glare. But you don't need much here. You can use something like a chair or a couch if you want a massive incline, but I find that to be a little too intense for me in this one. When I have the incline for my back and then the incline for my legs, I enjoy them just lifted a little bit. So, all right, so draw your hips back to the bolster, and we'll slowly lower ourselves down. You may find that you have to play with the height and the positioning of your feet. But all we need here is really just a very minimal incline. You can draw it up even higher if you want to add more support. But sometimes a chair or a couch is a little too much for me. I want us to draw one arm down, opening up, palms up. And then the same with the other side. And envision your shoulder blades just kind of releasing down, kind of dripping down either side of the bolster. So we're opening through that heart again. If you have an eye pillow handy, it's a great time to use that. And if you find that you need any more support under your knees, don't be afraid to really add another blanket or something underneath your knees or hamstrings just to help. And you can have your feet closer together or even draw them out a little bit wider. And be mindful of that lower back. If it needs anything, you can kind of tuck your hips under, maybe move closer to the bolster. Allow your body to really enjoy this one. This is one of my favorite postures, I think. Allow your hips to feel heavy. The legs and the feet that are lifted just slightly, allow them to release. This can be so good for the circulation through your legs. And dial back into that breath, just noticing how it's feeling. Noticing if it feels jumpy or if it's nice and smooth. Noticing the coolness as you draw that inhale in. And it fills you up entirely, lungs expanding. And then the warmth as you release that exhale out. And feel the support of the earth beneath you. Feel yourself releasing into it a little bit more. As your shoulders sink down a little bit deeper. And if you feel good right here, you can stay here for our final Shavasana. Otherwise, I invite you just to maybe roll off the side of your bolster carefully, moving it to the side and rolling back flat on your back. But again, if you want to stay with the incline, you can. And you can decide what to do with the legs as well. If you want to keep them raised with your cushion or blankets by your feet, you can. Otherwise, you can move that to the side or maybe draw it up under your knees to find just a gentle bend. Helps release that lower back a little bit. So wherever you find yourself for your final resting pose, allow yourself to experience the true release in this posture. Your spine sinking down. And the back of your head is heavy. And the backs of your arms and your hands are nice and heavy. If you haven't used your eye pillow yet, it might be a nice time to put it on. Notice the hips, the low back. If there's any tension there, you can adjust your props, maybe add a little more under your knees. Find some space between your feet. And allow those hips and that lower back to release. And feel the bones in your legs sinking heavy into the mat. Feel your heels heavy into the mat. And if you're holding energy in your feet, allow them just to release to the side, to fall open. As your mind begins to travel, just gently draw it back to this moment. As those sounds from the outside world possibly begin to get louder, and just welcome yourself to focus on the inhale and the exhale. And we slowly begin the transition back, coming out of the depths of our Shavasana, slowly becoming aware of the space around us, the room. Maybe wiggle your fingers and your toes. And draw your arms up overhead, full body stretch. And however you're set up in your Shavasana, just gently rolling over to the side, coming off props if you have them, moving carefully, finding the fetal position on your right or left side, whatever feels best. Enjoying just a few more moments here of stillness. And then when you're ready, we'll draw ourselves up into a seated position. And if you usually have one side crossed in front, maybe just reverse across your legs, finding something to sit on if that feels good. And we'll sit here for just a couple more breaths. And dial into the breath, the physical body, and the energy traveling within your body. Notice where you're at now that we've completed our practice. And just notice any shifts. Maybe they're minimal, maybe there are none, or maybe they feel massive. And when you're ready, we'll just bring our chin down to our chest. And slowly flutter your eyes open, gazing at the floor in front of you. And when you're ready, draw your gaze up. Bring your hands to your heart. And thank you all for practicing with me today. And I invite you this week to not put too much pressure on yourself to be in the present moment, but just to practice it, to practice presence. And coming back to the now, releasing the past and the future. And just continuing to come back to the moment we have that we're in right now. And thank you for practicing with me today. The light in me honors the beautiful light in both of you. Namaste. Thanks for coming, guys. And I hope you both have a lovely evening ahead of you. And everyone goes to bed easily tonight, including you. All right. Bye-bye.